I'm hoping that this topic of trust is relevant to all of you because it is core to what we build and for the ability for these companies to be able to grow. So with that, I'll start out with a really quick anecdote. This is probably my earliest memory of trust. I was like maybe in fourth grade, I was sick. When you're sick, you just need medicine, you need water, you need things all day long. And in the middle of the night, I remember screaming to my dad for water, like, I need water. And he brought in water and I drank the water and went back to bed. The next day, he asked me, what in your brain made you just drink the water blindly? All right. Like, how could that have been water for sure? How do you know it wasn't poisoned? I mean, these are the kinds of questions my dad asked me as a fourth grader to give you a sense of who my dad is. But I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And that was my first kind of palpable moment and memory of thinking about trust. I had this blind trust in my dad that he was going to bring me water in the middle of the night. It was safe. It was water. I could drink it. I could drink it half asleep, fall back asleep, good to go. So when I think about building trust as a company, as a tech company, the unfortunate advantage that we don't have is that it's not family. Your customers are not your children. They're not your parents. Your investors are not your children. They're not your parents. So that an inherent trust doesn't exist, which means that you have to build it. And just as trust is built in a family between parent and child, between spouses from day one, I really believe that the foundation of a startup and a tech company has to start with that trust. And you have to show that from every single day as the company grows, and you have to actually work in order to maintain it and to retain that trust. So from day one, you have to think about the trust as something you're building, not just with your customers, but with your employees and your investors. Because without that trust, nothing is going to hold. I've seen one too many companies that have amazing products, amazing ideas, and amazing way of making money, but then they don't have that fundamental trust. And I'll give you some tangible examples of that, and everything falls apart. And I think we can all think about companies, I won't name any names, that have had kind of these rocket ship paths to supposed success, but then have fallen apart. And you hear about all these different challenges, whether it's with investors, the board, the employees, whatever it might be. So when you're an early stage company, so I'm assuming the founders in the room are early stage companies. When you're an early stage company, everything requires trust. You're asking customers to buy something that never existed before. You're asking them to take a leap of faith. You're asking employees to potentially leave stable jobs, big paychecks, big benefits to come work for you. A huge leap of trust. And then you're asking your investors to bet on you with a pitch deck. And we can go into more detail on that if that's helpful. But it's a major leap of trust for all of your constituents. And also, if you're an employee at a company, let's say you're an executive or an operator at a company, similarly, you're asking for that trust for the people you're bringing onto your team, the customers you're acquiring, the business you're trying to get, and the revenue that you're trying to grow. I think about trust as kind of the base operating system of a startup. It's kind of table stakes. It has to be there, and it runs under everything and allows everything to grow from there. So when trust is strong, it really starts with clear communication. And that communication can be fast. It allows people to move with confidence. It allows customers to quickly experience your product. And it allows you to make progress without the train running off the tracks. So I really like to think about communication as a core underpinning of trust. I've been in my own fair share of companies before I was an investor, in fact, working at startups where there wasn't that underpinning of trust. And the companies have unfortunately gone off the rails. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. The transparency in communication can be a tricky one. So how many of you are leaders, either of your own company or within your company? Okay, a bunch of leaders. And the transparency in communication can sometimes feel like a double-edged sword. You want to be transparent, you want to be communicative, but then there are also some things which is like, I don't know if this needs to be shared broadly. I don't want to worry my employees. I don't want to worry my team. I see some head nodding. Yes, yes, yes. These are all really, really fair questions. By the way, if anyone has any specific questions, feel free to jump in. I'm happy to make it conversational. And I think this is a really important thing to think about. The nature of trust is that it's almost like love. You don't know it until it's gone. It's hard to really pinpoint. And when there isn't trust, people can feel it. They start to notice that something's happening, something's brewing. I don't know. There's concern. They may hear a small conversation that stops when they walk in. They may stumble across an email they weren't supposed to see. My advice to everyone building companies is it always, always, always comes out. And that actually will derail any trust that you had built and potentially harm the company and potentially harm the culture. How should you think about being discerning with information? So the first tactical piece of advice I will give all of you when it comes to trust is open and clear communication. Some of the best founders that I've worked with and invested with send a weekly investor update or maybe every other week investor update. They'll almost write it like a journal on Sunday night. They'll send it to their investors. They'll have a couple different buckets they talk about what's working, what's not working, things I'm thinking about, and asks. So make this almost a journal for you as an executive or as a founder, but putting it out there allows people to get a sense of what's happening, what's going on with the business, why should I pay attention, what should I put my extra set of eyes on, where can I help? And that open communication starts to build trust. Do you need to say, oh, I'm thinking about letting this particular person go? Probably not. But should you say, hey, we're thinking about making some team shifts. There's some things that need to change. We're going to hire some folks. We're going to change some teams. Probably, because the worst thing that can happen for employees or investors or customers is a bad surprise. How many of you like surprises, good surprises? Yes, all of us. Bad surprises, none of us. No one wants a bad surprise. And I think oftentimes where companies get tripped up is a bad surprise. They go into a board meeting with their investors and they haven't in advance been sharing that, hey, we're a little bit behind on revenue numbers. We're probably not going to hit targets this quarter. Hey, we're a little bit behind on customer logos. Hey, we're a little bit behind on hitting our hiring goals. They don't share that. They get to the board meeting, boom, it's a bad surprise. That never goes well, I promise you. No matter how much it feels better to put it off, it never goes well to bring that in the board meeting. Similarly, if you're an executive, let's say you have an employee, they're underperforming. Oh, I want to protect their feelings. I'm going to beat around the bush. I'm going to kind of share it, kind of not share it. It keeps going on and on. It turns into a death by 1,000 cuts. The most important thing when it comes to trust is early, often clear communication. So we talked about the investor letter. The other way to do early, often and clear communication is to build a habit of all hands or some kind of company-wide, or for those of you leading teams, team-wide communication cadence and information share. These can happen at whatever cadence makes sense from your company size. It can be a monthly company-wide all hands with a weekly team stand-up. It can be quarterly if the company is larger. But this kind of forum and building the habit around this forum is critical for the transparency and communication. It also sets expectations. People will start to know, okay, every third Thursday of the month, we're going to all get together. We're going to talk about these things. I'm going to get a sense of what's happening in the company. And I also, as an employee of the company, as a leader in the company, can bring my questions to it. Again, these habits are important, and these habits are what drive culture. And what I like to remind everyone is culture. Oftentimes people talk about culture as coming top down, but it's also bottoms up. It has to come from the CEO and leadership. But by building these habits, you show employees how important it is to attend these things, how important it is to participate, put questions at the chat, ask questions, bring all your questions. And this thing comes from both sides to start building that culture of transparency and trust. I'll give you a quick anecdote of an early stage company I worked at. My first job was at Google, but after that, I went to an early stage company. I was the 10th or 11th employee. I was on the product side. And in my mind, I think I was maybe like 25 at the time. In my mind, we had everything. We had an amazing product, check. We had tons of investor money, check. We had really smart people. I mean, when I interviewed, I was like, every single one of these individuals could be a founder, check. Check, check, check. Everything felt great. I was ready to go. Joined the company, the product, we were working on that. All these things were going well. But then I realized that there was no trust in the company. There was information that was siloed from person to person that caused a lot of repeat work. Like someone on this side would be working on something and someone on this side would be working on the same thing because there was a lack of communication and people felt like they were almost competing against each other. The lack of transparency and trust also made people feel really on edge. And it was on what I now think of as like really dumb things, right? Like it was like, oh, Is this company going to give us healthcare? If so, when are we going to get this healthcare? When is insurance going to be established? Yes, it's an early stage company. We have to figure out the details. We have to pick the right insurance provider, pick the benefits. But there was never transparent, clear communication that, okay, you will all have insurance that you can select by November 10th or something like that. These little details make a difference. And it takes away from people's ability to focus on their jobs. It takes away from people's ability to be 100% present for their work. And they're stressed and they're thinking about all these 10 other things when they should be focusing. This company also, then I realized, was not establishing trust with investors. The CEO was not communicating honestly, transparently, clearly with investors. And that lack of trust was also starting to creep into the employees, which will get me to my next point, which I think is really, really important. Again, another show of hands. How many of you are regularly talking to customers at some regular level of cadence? Awesome. Every single one of you, founders, operators, executives, should be talking to customers. I remember when I worked at Google, I was on the customer support side, my first job out of college. And the SVPs of the company, the heads of product, Susan Wojcicki, before she led YouTube, all these people were, even then, this is like 15 years ago, were talking to customers, which was amazing to me. And I learned from that example. They were great role models around that. If there is a lack of trust in the company, and if it's permeating into everything, that will translate into how you talk to customers. I've seen it time and time again. If the employees don't have trust in the company, that will come out in how they speak to customers. They will have doubtfulness in their voice and their tone. They won't be able to answer questions with confidence. They won't be able to make promises around SLAs. They can't say, yeah, we'll have you up and running in 14 days. Yes, we can get you the LOI by end of day. Yes, my other colleague will email you by tomorrow, because none of that is going to hold true because there's no trust in the company. So on every step of the way, that trust is important, which makes me want to remind everybody that trust is fundamentally core for building a great business. I think the challenge with the word trust is that a lot of people think it's like touchy-feely, like it feels good, it probably should be there, we probably should be nice to each other, we probably should be ethical. But I think oftentimes what gets missed is bringing that back into business fundamentals. And that's what I hope you walk away with today, is that this trust is key for growing businesses and growing companies. So let's take another step into what else trust can be. I think in this world of AI and constant technology and constant communication, trust also becomes really key between how you protect your customers' data. So trust is internal, it's communication, and it's also how you protect your employees' data, your customers' data. And this is really core to what we do at Vanta. We protect customers' data every single day. We help companies earn and maintain trust on the internet. So it's something we think about from our core product perspective, but it's really something we live in the day-to-day of the business. And that starts with that communication, and it continues into how we think about the actual products that we're building. Again, a show of hands. How many of you, let's say in the last 2 weeks, have seen something on the internet where you're not sure if it's real or not? Yeah, I think all of us. I was at a birthday party on Saturday, and my friend showed me a photo of him and Federer. And I was like, this is an AI Federer. And he's like, no, it's real. I was like, no, it's AI, but it was real. Because these are the conversations that are happening, right? It's like, who knows who you're meeting? Who knows who's talking? I may not even be real. Maybe I'm an AI. Who knows? But the thing is that all of that, on one hand, is amazing. We're living on the cutting edge of technology, and we're able to do things that we never thought was possible. But on the other hand, it's yet another way that trust can chip away, and how it continues to be fundamental to the companies we're building. And that human element continues to be fundamental to the companies we're building, which will bring me to my last point about trust. And this goes into mistakes. We've all made them. We'll all continue to make them. I probably made 10 already this morning. And that is also an opportunity to build trust. And this goes back to my earlier question, which is like, sometimes it's hard to know exactly what to communicate, how open to be, how transparent to be. And my kind of MO has always been lead with honesty, lead with transparency, because that's going to build trust, and that compounds over time and gives you the license and earns you the right to do more and more with your employees, your investors, your customers. So if there's a mistake, let's say there was an SLA where you were going to deliver something to a customer in 14 days. It's not going to happen. Communicate with them, let them know, apologize. If you're able to give them something in exchange, maybe some discounts, some freebies, some extra session, something. Do that, but communicate, because the worst thing that can happen is not meeting the expectation and not communicating it. It'll really erode the trust.